Hi, Richie.
Hi, Sin.
Hi, Illusory Wall.
Hello.
And welcome to the podcast.
Yay.
Hey, thanks so much for having me. Thank you.
Thank you for coming on.
This is great. I'm excited there's been much happening in the discussion in the Souls community lately, and to actually have people to talk about with these things is fantastic.
Oh, thank you.
Aw. And hi,
It's a shame it's us.
Oh my god, Richie. And for people who may have been living under a rock lobster, could you tell them about who you are, what you do, and where can people find you?
Sure. I go by the handle Illusory Wall in the Souls community. I do a bunch of mechanics analysis primarily. For a bunch of years, I'd post that stuff directly to Reddit and the wikis, sort of operating almost behind the scenes in a way. But a lot more recently, I started making YouTube videos, a series called Dark Souls Dissected, that really gets into the details and kind of explains how the weird mechanics work and everything. And so you can find me on YouTube as Illusory Wall, social media as well, Twitter, stuff like that. And I think that's the gist of it.
Awesome. And today we're going to talk about Demon Souls, the new trailer, and our general impressions of it.
Yes.
Yay.
So I had a sort of overall general broad view of the trailer. Something that's kind of struck me about it that I found interesting is that I thought it was a very confident trailer.
Mm.
What I mean by that is if you're not someone who's already on board with the Souls games, you're not a fan of them or you haven't really played them or you don't know them well, the opening gameplay segment of the trailer is just a walkthrough of the tutorial area. And I could see a lot of people watching that and being like, what's the big deal? I mean, the graphics are great, so maybe that'll attract some people. But in terms of just the combat, and it's oh, you walk down this hallway and a couple enemies randomly pop out, and it's it's very not in your face. It's not very trailer ready. I feel that's that segment of gameplay.
Right.
So to come out with it, I felt it's kind of a bold statement. Yeah, this is the game. We know there's a built-in a captive audience for this. It's a genre that people know and love. So I thought that was kind of an interesting choice to make.
Yeah, especially when you compare it to the initial launch trailers for from 10 years ago, where they're making a massive deal out of how much you're going to die, and they're I remember one that just it had all these title cards being thrown at you that was just saying online multiplayer, PvP, throwing all these features at you because we didn't really have a baseline to sort of compare it to because it was new at the time. And now everyone kind of knows this.
Yeah, they know it and they just feel confident enough. I mean, hey, just very casual gameplay for just a minute long segment or whatever. That's enough to get people hooked. And they know it at this point, which is kind of fascinating.
Mm.
That's a really good point, because after I watched the trailer, I went on YouTube and I found a walkthrough of that area in the original just to compare, because at first glance it looked very similar. So once I compared them, it's practically the same. They're basically telling you, don't worry, we got this.
Yeah, that's the sort of vibe I got as well. If you really look at all of the enemy placement, there's a few specific things we can nitpick, and I guess we will. But the overall impression, 99% of the time from what we see in the trailers, it's the level layout is identical, the enemy placement is identical. It really feels like the same. I mean, there's a bunch of aesthetic changes and things that have changed, but it feels like the base level of effort into saying yeah, this is going to be a familiar experience. They're putting that in, it seems like.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But the changes that are there, though, some weird ones, right? So on Twitter recently, and again, this is something that I missed in my initial comparisons, I think most people did in the first wave, the Vanguard has a mouth on its back.
Right, yeah.
Which is whoa. And I'm kicking myself for not noticing that in the trailer. But again, it's one of those small things where it's most of what we see looks pretty familiar. The aesthetic changes of the Vanguard, I'm not too crazy about. That's one of my biggest nitpicks. But adding a mouth to the back, it's okay, they are probably considering how the series evolved. And if it was too easy to cheese that enemy before, they probably are adding a few mechanics and things to work around to actually, maybe add more depth to the mechanical experience.
Mm.
When I first played Demon Souls a couple years ago maybe, I found it pretty hard. But I guess after playing Dark Souls Bloodborne a bunch, going back to it like a few weeks ago, it seemed easier.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I feel like there's a weird evolution in the difficulty of the games where they kind of evolved from having harsher environments to having like tougher boss fights.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's like in Demon Souls, like you're definitely worried about getting knocked off a cliff, like way more than you are in Dark Souls 3.
Yeah.
But then boss fights are just like, for me, you know, a lot of people talk about the Souls games in terms of like the hardest one you'll have played is the first game you've played. Comments online being like, Dark Souls 3 is so easy, and I'm like, I have no idea what those people are talking about. Like Dark Souls 3 is so damn hard to me, like it's the last Souls game I played, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely it's a weird different experience, Demon Souls, and it'll be interesting to see how that evolves if they do add more mechanics to make the combat feel more modern, maybe.
One thing that we talked about, we did an episode about the kind of evolution from Kingsfield to Demon Souls, and about how we know that Demon Souls did start as a first-person game when it was initially in development, and like the fights seem to be like almost designed around that kind of still. Like it's slow things that you sort of move around while you're fighting in a way that like if you can lock on and circle strafe, it's way easier. But if you were fighting those things with like a twin stick first-person setup, it would be a lot harder.
That would explain the design evolution a lot. And something I thought was funny, too, coming into Dark Souls 2 from Dark Souls 1, is I remember Dark Souls 2 got a lot of complaints about how they felt like some of the enemy targeting was unfair. And I'm like, you know, though, it was definitely very intentional from the developers. Like, hey, you got used to Demon Souls and Dark Souls 1 a lot, and you're used to strafing around enemies too easily. So we're just going to have like a wind-up attack from this enemy that's like delayed longer and will like follow you last second better.
Yeah.
And so I feel like those considerations being like, depending on how well you knew the previous games, they want to sort of switch things up and make it harder to rely on some of those older cheesy strategies. And I think that probably comes back to the Vanguard demon here, adding a mouth to its back, saying, yeah, if you're used to just hugging its backside too easily, then, you know, you might have
You're gonna have a bad time.
you're going to have a bad day. You're not going to make it to the Dragon God. Yeah, it's interesting to see. There's other weird small changes too. Something that you had mentioned in the like screenshot comparison, the armored spider as well, coating the ground in oil. That I think that's new as well. I remember you were saying like you couldn't remember if that was in the original. I had sort of had the same thing where my reaction was exactly the same when I saw it, and I was like, I think that's new.
Yeah, someone in the comments said like that the animation with the oil on the ground is new, but like that specific pattern where it coats the ground in fire, apparently it does do that in the original.
Okay,
but it's like a different method. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, because I was going to say it felt halfway familiar. Well, actually, that's a pretty cool. That's a pretty good way to do things and add embellishments to a remake because it sort of better explains what's happening in that attack.
Yeah. I think like Armored Spider is like absolutely something you would fight in first person because it is just a shooting gallery. This thing that's facing you. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
That'll be interesting to see how that evolves too. Because again, that's a very not late Souls game kind of fight. Maybe comparable to like Wolner and some of the weirder fights, but again, it feels very old from software.
Yeah. It feels like it's Kingsfield.
Yes.
Yeah, which also has like giant immobile arachnid things in it.
Which actually I've only watched, sadly, admittedly, only watched gameplay of Kingsfield. I've not played any of the Kingsfield games yet, so I really have to go back and do my homework, so to speak. It's the type of thing, too, that if I had those games back in the day, they would have 100% been up my alley. Like, I would have loved them.
Yeah.
I just, didn't have those games and didn't know of From Software until Demon's Souls, so. Yeah, so what were your general, like, reactions to, like, how hyped or not hyped are you guys for the Demon's Souls remake?
Sin, how hyped are you? Well, you pre-ordered it, didn't you? Already.
Well, after I saw the very first trailer, I was like, I don't know about that. And then after I saw the second trailer, I pre-ordered a PS5.
Ooh.
Did you actually get your like pre-order through?
Yep.
Oh my, I'm so jealous.
My boyfriend and I are both like gamers or whatever, so we stayed up till like 2 a.m. refreshing Best Buy.
Oh man. I woke up in the middle of the night because I couldn't sleep. Awkwardly, just like stumbled over to my computer and like looked online and saw that they were all sold out. And like a lot of people were commenting, like most recently, like, "Oh, they were able to get one half an hour ago," and then nothing after that. And I was like, "Crap! I just missed it by like half an hour, didn't I?"
Aw.
So I am excited for the game. I haven't pre-ordered a copy of the game yet. I'll do that soon. But just the console, yeah, I'm like that's what I'm nervous about actually getting that at launch.
I think like PlayStation released a statement on Twitter being like, "Sorry, we ran out of consoles. We'll have more."
That's good. Hopefully that's true.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, you see people on like Facebook Marketplace or one of those things posting pre-orders for like $1,500, and you're like, "That's crazy."
yeah, I scalpers. Yeah,
Yeah,
never
yeah.
again. I remember I once bought scalp tickets to a Bjork concert. That's the only time I ever bought scalp tickets. Yeah, it was a type of thing where like I was in a queue online to get tickets, and it was
Hmm.
my second and last Bjork concert that I wound up going to, and I was in a queue, and when it counted down to zero, it just like the number just like shot back up. Like it didn't like actually like it glitched, the website glitched or whatever, and the tickets were of course sold out like instantly. And then I wound up paying double for the tickets. So the tickets were like, like it was the most
Yeah.
I've ever paid for a concert
Yeah,
ticket. It was like
yeah,
it wasn't like ludicrous, like it was still under $200, like it wasn't like some
Yeah.
astronomical, but like I'm used to paying like way less to go to concerts. So I was like, crap.
But I mean, it's Bjork. It's worth it.
true.
It was worth it, but it's a discussion of like don't feed the scalpers, and it was like, well, that's why they have a whole model, because there's going to be someone who like absolutely positively can't say no to something.
Hmm.
I'm someone who won't pay for a scalped PS5. I'll try my hardest to get a pre-order
Hmm.
in. But yeah, it's a sad situation. Damn scalpers. The biggest thing I want to see, well, I guess it just in terms of general reaction too, I find myself agreeing with a lot of the criticisms about Demon Souls with the Demon Souls remake, but I would sort of make the comparison to like something like Dark Souls 2, where that game gets a lot of complaints, and I really enjoyed Dark Souls 2.
Mm.
But at the same time, I agree with most of the major complaints out there. Just the difference is the level of severity, right? Like where the complaints about Dark Souls 2 make some people hate it. And I'm just like, well, that maybe just knocks it down a couple pegs. Like I understand the
Yeah,
criticisms they have. And I feel the same way with the Demon Souls remake, where a lot of people are complaining about the architecture looking a lot more gothic, and that's something like in Upper Latria, like I think that's totally cool. Like that can fit, that can maybe aid in it feeling weirdly Lovecraftian in some way.
yeah,
But when you talk about something in Boletaria looking like it was supposed to be like soldiers' barracks in the original version of the game, it's like, ooh, like I hope all of like the railings of like stone like don't have lots of ornate stuff on top of them, because they shouldn't, but they
mm.
probably will from what we've seen so far. So it's that sort of thing, like the aesthetic might be kind of stepping in the wrong direction in a few places. But again, this is like ultra nitpicky, and it's the type of thing where I'd be like, yeah, that's maybe not what I would have done, but it doesn't like destroy my faith or hope in this product too much.
Yeah. It looks like I don't. It's not going like it's not nitpicking to say it looks very, very different and it feels very different, even though it's
Mm-hmm.
technically the same environment.
Mm-hmm.
Like we talked a bit about the Nexus last time, about how now it has that shaft of light going down the middle that like illuminates the face of the statue,
Mm-hmm.
and that gives it a completely different feel. Because I was looking back at it and I'm like, in the original, you not being able to properly make out the statue to me is a big part of the atmosphere of that area. It's almost
Mm-hmm.
like looking at that statue, it's kind of like if something is in the distance with the sun behind it and you can't quite make it out, and it feels like what am I looking at? Whereas now it's like the lighting is quote unquote better. So it
Right.
picks out all the details, but like then it has like a more tangible quality to it.
What I will say is they added a bunch of candles to the Nexus, and that's one addition of because they're just adding like a bunch of crap and detail to the environments. But Maiden in Black does say that she keeps the candles lit, so I'm like, okay, like she actually has something to do now. So
Yeah. And some
Yeah.
people speculate that maybe this is related to the tendency.
that would be interesting.
We noticed that the Archstones, the little indentation where there's like a gem,
Yes.
that's empty in the trailer, but it has the gem in the socket in the game that we got 10 years ago. So it's like, is it going to be like that's going to be a visual signifier that you've done something to the Archstone, like the gem will light up or something?
Well, it's funny that you should say that, because I remember in the original version of the game, and I might be getting the Archstones mixed up, so I don't remember which worlds it applies to and which it doesn't. I remember staring really closely at that gem thing and like having a hard time figuring out if it was like an optical illusion, where I was like, is it like concave or convex? Is that the right word? Like, I couldn't tell if there was actually a gem present in it or if it was like the slot of something that was supposed to hold it.
Right.
So it would be funny if like it was supposed to be there, but they just visually saw it the same way I did, where I thought it was empty in the original version of the game. But I would have to like look. I remember just playing with the camera and binoculars a little bit and being like confused by the visual aspect. So that's really funny to me.
I think it is. It's like missing on some of them, and it is there on others. So I remember going over it with someone who's like Vardy is doing that Demon Souls contest, and I was helping get reference images for it, and we were like, oh yeah, like this is missing on some but not others. Like there's all these weird details that like I never noticed when I first played it.
You know how the wings on the Archstones are clearly like bright? Do you think that's tendency related?
It would be really interesting to have, because again, the world tendency menu shows the different Archstones and just brightens or darkens them to indicate, what your world tendency is. Which, this is going weirdly deep into the mechanics as a tangent, but a lot of people are used to reading about world tendency from Wikidot, which is like the best kind of wiki for Demon Souls. But that's like a gross oversimplification of world tendency. It doesn't actually use like a +1, +2 system at all. It's like it's way more detailed and complicated than that. But anyways, that would be an opportunity for them to brighten or darken like some visual elements of the Archstones themselves in the environment. Actually, even if they did that and got rid of the world tendency menu itself, that would actually be pretty damn cool if there's a way to tell just by in the environment.
Yeah.
That's an opportunity to do something else that would be an interesting consideration. You mentioned like the candles and the Nexus, and maybe that relating to tendency in some way. The original version of Demon Souls does have world tendency values for the Nexus. There's just nothing that relates to that. Like every time you were suiciding in the Nexus to like avoid dying in a world and making the game harder, you were darkening the tendency of the Nexus itself. But there's like nothing that relates to that mechanically. So it's sort of like an open slot for like maybe that could make something happen there as well.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's weird. There's a lot of things they could do with tendency, which is sort of the biggest thing for me, wondering what they might do differently in the game. That's like world tendency is the big kind of the elephant in the room for me.
Well, there's that thing called, is it Shattered Mode or something that was like leaked and then deleted?
Yes.
Yeah.
What's that?
Who even
we don't
knows?
Yeah. That's the thing that's like of most interest to me, is like what the hell is Shattered Mode?
Yeah, I have no idea. Some people were speculating like maybe it could relate to the original True Death mode that was cut, but I'm like, I don't know. That would be a really weird name change for it. I don't know. The sky's the limit, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I would love to them to just add some sort of new game mode, because why not? Demon Souls is a fairly short game compared to the rest of the Souls games, and so there's a lot of room if they want to add more mechanics, more things to do or things to look out for. That'd be great.
Yeah.
Speaking of shattered Archstones,
yes.
What do you think of the missing Archstone?
I know a lot of people were like keeping an eye out for it in the trailer, and you could see that it is broken still or whatever.
Yeah.
I feel like from a marketing standpoint, if they're going to do anything with it, my first guess is that they would do DLC and that it wouldn't be there at launch. Because that's kind of like, why not? That seems like a no-brainer. And also just from a design standpoint, like, I know like most video games have some amount of crunch to them that's just sort of built into the model of making products like that. And if they were going to go to the effort of making their completely own level, which if I were them, I would want to so bad. Like, I know it's scary to, is it going to be blasphemy or whatever compared to the original design of the game, making their own level? but like you come up with all of these mechanics and systems and everything, and you work really hard to rebuild this game. It's like, why wouldn't you want the experience of designing your own playground within the game, basically?
Mm.
And so I could see them too, like having to really crunch to put the game out there, but then spending more time on a DLC for it. So that's my like most likely guess, is that maybe it'll be there, but packaged as something you have to buy later on.
Yeah, and like the level maps like still exist. Like the geometry is still there. It's just not used.
Yeah, the enemies too, right? So
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's something.
yeah.
That's something I'd wondered about though, because it's the type of thing where there is a decent amount to the cut maps of the Broken Archstone level, but it's also just simplistic enough that it
Mm.
feels like they could go either way on that. Like, was there a clear intent to those original levels that they want to maintain, or would they just start from scratch? And I feel like there have been so many Souls games since then that it's not that the Broken Archstone levels are a dead ringer for any later Soulsborne levels, but it still just feels like if we were only a couple games into the series that, okay, maybe you would want to see that exact level finished, but I feel like they've probably iterated on some of the concepts in some way in later games that, if you could go back and dig up the team and see like what really was like what were some of the gimmicks and concepts you had for this area, you would probably find out that it just wound up in Dark Souls 2 or Dark Souls 3 at some point, even if the design looks a bit different. But so I just feel kind of like if they do the Broken Archstone, I actually wouldn't be surprised if it just doesn't match the content at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hope that the Broken Archstone is in the game or DLC in whatever, shape, way, or form. And I hope that they actually break the Valley of Defilement Archstone.
Hmm.
I love the Valley of Defilement. But I get it, though.
Yeah.
Man, I want to see, because we haven't seen any of the Valley of Defilement yet
Yeah.
in any of the comparison trailers. It's the one environment they showed the Shrine of Storms has rain in it now. Again, we don't know if that's across the board or maybe if that's world tendency affecting the weather or something. But yeah, I know the bottom of Valley of Defilement had like that dark, hazy rain to it. So I'm just hoping that area looks awesome, because I think that has some of the most potential for. It's the kind of thing where like the aesthetic of improved lighting it gives it distinctly better graphics, but in some cases you're weighing the pros and cons of advanced lighting. But I feel like the bottom of Valley of Defilement, like I want to see that with modern graphics and lighting. I think that could
Yeah.
look really, really awesome.
One of the things that we also talked about with regard to like Demon Souls and lighting is that the lack of draw distance sort of helps in a lot of places, making it feel more oppressive. And one of my fears was that they would think, oh, it's 2 console generations later, let's fix that. But
Mm-hmm.
they seem to have maintained like relatively the same like draw distance by just using fog and darkness and stuff.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that I think they will understand that intent.
Yeah.
The biggest departure again graphically is they released that one shot on their pre-order page where you're looking from like the Dragon's Rest towards the
Yeah.
later areas of Boletaria, and that level of fidelity and crispness definitely, like, it was so clear looking that like a lot of people didn't recognize the location. Maybe also
Yeah.
because it was a weird spot, but that was really funny for me to see, because in the original version of Demon Souls, you can look down in that area, you do see that tower in the middle, and you see the sort of converging mountain peaks, which I guess in the remake they put like more of like an empty valley between them instead of converging. But graphically, the graphics are so like bad in the original that looking at the distant mountain tops, the peaks of the mountains where they touch is a little like gets a little rectangular and low quality, that I thought it looked like a building up there.
Right.
And in my head, I misunderstood the elevator ride up to Alance Tower. Usually I'm really like good and on top of understanding the geographical spaces of these games. So I always thought Alance Tower was supposed to be on the top of the mountaintop, but it's actually not. It's just that one tower you see centered in the frame between and below like the mountains. So I thought that kind of blew my mind when I found that out. And then when I saw the remake, I was like, oh, well, at least they understand the framing of like, yeah, that's the final tower off in the distance kind of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just thought it was funny that the low quality of graphics affected my interpretation of the area. I thought like, oh yeah, Lance way up on top of those mountains. And it's like, oh no, he's down between them.
It's like the comparing the brain of Mensis to the heart in Latria, where it's like
Mhm.
Mm.
with the brain of Mensis, like from the beginning, you can look up and see, oh, okay, there's like you can't really make it up because it's so far away, but you can kind of tell, okay, there's like a brainy thing in this tower. It's like a blob and it's shooting like light at me. Whereas in Latria, like you kind of never really get a good look at the heart. You just like bump into it occasionally. You're kind of like groping around in the dark on these narrow
Yeah.
ledges, and then you'll just bump into a bunch of meat. And it's
Yes.
like it has that really like, oh Jesus quality to it that like if you could just see from where you're standing to the end of the bridge, it like wouldn't feel the same.
Mhm.
So I'm
Mm-hmm.
glad that like Latria, they seem to have maintained the same level of darkness. Like you can't really see more than you could before. So that was my number one concern.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Mhm.
Yeah, I felt like the brightness in Latria in the remake looks like it was up to just a small amount, but it's pretty comparable to original Demon Souls with max brightness setting, which I usually play when I play original Demon Souls. I usually have it around like 7 or 8 brightness,
Yeah.
just because I feel like the neutral setting is like it's like just a little too dark in some places.
Yeah.
So Richie just mentioned his number one concern, and my number one concern is whether or not the catering icon is making a comeback.
100%. So for any listeners who are unaware, but you should be aware, and if you're not, you will be now. Just like Google image search like Demon Souls cat ring. I think that's the ring that lessens your fall damage, if I remember correctly. And its icon in the status effects, like in the HUD, is legendary. It's like
Yeah.
just like a JPEG, basically. I don't know the actual file format, but basically it's just like a JPEG of like some developer's cat, probably. Uh, it's just an actual literal photo of a house cat,
Mhm.
and it is aesthetically horribly inappropriate in the original Demon Souls. It's terrible, but that's why we all love it. And I'm hoping it's like there's no way they would just put that in unchanged. Like that would be truly legendary if they just put it back in as is, and I would love it. I'm hoping they split the difference though, and they make a new status effect icon and find some like you insert the Konami code or something and it
Yeah.
unlocks. Like it should be there in Easter egg form in some way where if someone really wants to see it, let them do it, but let
Mhm.
the general player base get to avoid it. I guess maybe
It's the reward for beating the game in shattered mode.
that that would be too good. Yeah, I genuinely want it back as an Easter egg in some way.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, and like the rat icon was like a CGI rat.
I was just about to say
Yeah.
the other status effect icons. Yeah, the rat one is terrible too.
Yeah.
Terrible in a different way, where it's a really low quality like 3D model.
Yeah,
Like
it's like perfectly symmetrical, staring directly at you, and like if you see them next to each other, it looks like someone's like late '90s GeoCities website where they've just like stuck some random images together. It's
it's
beautiful.
it's
Yeah.
really bad, and it sets itself apart. Like that, those are two things you could point to. Like if you wanted to quickly show how the Souls games evolved and the rough edges around Demon Souls, if you had to take a single screenshot, I would be sure to equip the cat ring and the rat ring. Absolutely.
The cat's not even looking at you. It's like looking above you.
It's so
Everything
bizarre.
about it. It's like it's not even that it's a JPEG of a cat. It's like the worst possible choice for a JPEG of a cat.
It feels very rushed. It definitely feels like they had to scramble these status effect icons together and just like we're like, all right, here's what we got. And I would love to know the back. Has anyone There's no way to Google reverse search that cat. I bet like
Well, like one thing I noticed in Bloodborne is that all the blackboards are like stock images of existing blackboards. So I'm assuming that
yeah.
like this probably just had a bunch of stock images and just looked up cat.
Yeah, it had to have come from some library.
Yeah.
Yeah, that comes down to. I'm sure that most games are affected by this, but of course we're super into the Souls games, so we notice it here. But there's definitely always some fundamental aspect of like you have to go to some stock library to get some assets. Like you can't build everything from the ground up. Yeah, there's some funny examples of that too. Like that has to be the explanation for how the Heineken label wound up in the Grave of Saints and Dark Souls 2. Like they Google searched, or they searched within their libraries, I should say, probably like rubble or rubbish pile or something like that, and just like came up with that and didn't notice a label in it.
And like the books in all the bookcases, like they're just existing books that they've like got scans of the covers of. Like the Fool's Idols book is the Book of Kells and things like that.
Yeah, I remember when that was pointed out. I never thought to look more closely at the book myself, and when that was identified, I thought that was super, super cool. Because the texture is surprisingly high quality for her book in Demon Souls.
Yeah.
I wonder if they kept that. There's no way they did. There's no way they did, but if they put a high res, like a scan of it that you can actually read, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
But so I guess changes that we want to see in Demon Souls Remake. I don't know if there's a lot of the common things. People want ladders to be climbed faster. That's something that should probably happen. I would expect the speed at which characters fall is going to be tweaked, because if anyone remembers, if you walk off a ledge in Demon Souls, like you fall comically slow. It looks really, really weird and floaty, and nothing has a realistic, like arrows that are fired in these games have to move slower so that your player, like your eyes, can like understand what you're seeing. They aren't based off of realistic physics, but in the later Souls games you do fall faster than you do in Demon Souls. You go back to that game and you try walking off a ledge and you're like, whoa, why am I floating? So all those little things are going to be tweaked for sure. But I'm wondering if they're going to, my biggest thing, again, going back to World Tendency, is I really want to see them flush that out to a really extreme degree. Changes to the environment, like weather and lighting. I hope they go all in on that, because it would be great to go back to World and to not just be like, oh, there's an enemy in red, like glowing red, who wasn't here before, as an indication that things have changed. It would be great to have a lot of different things change.
I'd like, just personally, I'd like to see them get rid of the and I assume they will get rid of the gender restrictions on armor sets.
Oh yeah, duh, I didn't even think about that. Yeah, that should be gone 100%.
Yeah.
Oh, another thing, you know how when you pick up certain armor, if you're overburdened or whatever, you can't go back to it again?
I wonder, that's a really tricky thing, because like part of me feels like everyone hates that mechanic. I kind of like the weird risk or reward of picking things up and then maybe losing them if you can't hold on to them. But it's a tricky thing, because it sucks if you picked up like the brushwood armor set, which weighs a ton. And then, you suddenly have to make a decision of like, do I like get rid of all of my other armor and weapons to carry this crap now? So I could easily see them undoing it, and I don't know if it's the type of thing where you can split the difference on, where you'd say, well, let's keep the mechanic, but just up the capacity a lot. But it's like, well, if you do that, then players might not learn that it's even a mechanic at all until they pick up one really heavy armor set. And if it only impacts you in like one specific situation in the game, that doesn't make a lot of sense either.
It's again, like, it feels like something from an earlier like design methodology where it's more of a dungeon crawl kind of deal, where you have to like, what am I going to haul back to the surface kind of feel to it. But in a world where everything is persistent and there's a ton of unique stuff, it feels like it can screw you over in a way that feels
there isn't really a good like in-game, in-lore explanation for like, well, I couldn't pick up this armor set and then now it's gone forever. It's like, well, if you couldn't pick it up, you could just go back to the Nexus and then go back and get it. Like, well, why would it have to disappear,
Yeah, that could actually be a good solution. Like, you can pick it up later.
That could be it. Maybe just have the items re-auto drop to the corpse you tried picking them up off of.
Yeah, or just say like, you are overburdened, cannot pick up, or something like that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Something else that I was wondering about, crystal lizards. So, for those who might be unaware, they worked a little bit differently in Demon Souls than the later Souls games. In the later Souls games, if a crystal lizard runs away and disappears, you can just quit and reload right where the crystal lizard was, and there's no tension. There's no like it's guaranteed to come back if you missed it. In Demon Souls, if you have a crystal lizard run away and disappear on you, that crystal lizard is gone forever with a bit of an asterisk, and that there is like a sort of point system or like progression system where more crystal lizards can be added to that same spawn point.
Yeah.
When you like defeat a boss, like another crystal lizard will come back, and if you're at another location and hadn't cleared that crystal lizard, then there will be like two waiting in that spot essentially. Kill one, reload it, and then the second one will be back. So the thing I liked about that is there felt like actual tension, and that the crystal lizard you want to kill could disappear and be lost forever. At the same time, though, losing out on important upgrade materials also kind of sucks. Like it was very very punishing, it felt like. So that's one of those things where I felt like the series should always split the difference, where I would love to have crystal lizards disappear permanently if you lose them, but that maybe that what they drop, like there's a good counterbalance, like there's an other spot in the game to reasonably farm or obtain the same stuff. And Demon Souls has a few spots where it's like, no, they potentially drop like important upgrade materials for certain upgrade paths. And, if you don't get the drop you're looking for, like in the Ender Shrine of Storms from the Crystal Lizards or whatever, like you're just going to have to wait till New Game Plus. And if I'm remembering correctly. But it's just very like, again, I can see them wanting to change that because maybe it was too punishing. But I also do like the risk reward. Like if you see one in the environment, it's more special than it was in the later Souls games.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, making it feel more like I did a cool thing and got a reward, rather than like, oh shit, I'm locked out of doing this now.
Yeah. Balancing that between, or just, I just quit and reloaded to the title screen and there it is, no problem. Like,
yeah.
So this doesn't even relate to Demon Souls, but can I pitch you this weird theory I've been crafting?
Cool.
Yes.
Okay. So there was a recent thread by Zuli posting this idea that Filners Egg in Dark Souls 3 are related to the transposing kiln.
Right.
And this has made me go down a weird rabbit hole over the last couple of days, where my final conclusion is that I think Vagrants are related to crystal lizards, which is a weird direction to go in. So that's something I'll be writing about or making a video on probably some months down the road. They look nothing alike, Vagrants and crystal lizards. So it's like, why would they be related? They have a weird crab, Lovecraftian, cute crab monster thing, and then like a lizard. One of the connecting tissues to bear in mind, though, is that good Vagrants run away and disappear if you approach them.
Yeah.
Oh.
And the evil Vagrant doesn't do that, but it has an unused animation of disappearing. And I'm like, And there's a few things in these sort of lore observations that, like, the toss-up is Filners Egg related to Vagrants or crystal lizards? There's certain things that piece them together, and I'm having a sort of why not both situation.
Yeah.
Do lizards lay eggs?
Yes.
In real life or Dark Souls?
Anywhere?
Yeah, we never see any in-game egg type stuff, but that makes me wonder, when a crystal lizard runs off and disappears, where does it go exactly? Does it, online mechanically, it doesn't do anything, but if the concept was like maybe it's disappearing off to another world, maybe the Vagrants were the evolution of that idea. Maybe they said, maybe coming from Demon Souls, they're like, someone had the conversation of being like, hey, where do these lizards run off to? It's like, oh, maybe it goes to someone else's game. And a light bulb went off, and they said, well, here's why don't we do these Vagrant things? So,
well, like the lizards are interesting because like Dark Souls makes this point of like everything was rock, and then like fire happened, which infused the rock with souls, and that's kind of where everything comes from. And then, so like the crystal lizards, like they're Titanite. That's like in fuel. It's not clear if they are Titanite or they just like they have Titanite in them because they're made of rock. But like. And like you find them all in the Great Hollow, which is the big stone tree that goes down to where the big stone dragon is, and it's like, so it's almost like a Vagrant's like the opposite because they are souls, because like they're what happens when you lose a bunch of souls, they become a Vagrant.
This is exactly what I was thinking. The crystal lizards have a sort of like pre-human quality to them, being related to Titanite. I feel like the Vagrants might be the weird corruption of humanity in a way,
Yeah.
where the process naturally births these weird lizards, and then because of the nature of humans being dark and twisted and being cursed and everything, I feel like Vagrants might be the weird mutated version of a crystal lizard in a way where they're corrupted by humanity and they come out as these horrible, weird monster type things.
And that's like Filners is like where the dark soul is, and the dark soul is humanity. So like it sort of links together.
Yeah. So this is in progress theory crafting, but I love it because I've wondered for years, like, who thought of Vagrants? Like, where the heck did that idea come from? The developers have never talked about it. But now that I'm thinking about it, like, oh, yeah, if it stemmed from Demon Souls, crystal lizards running away and disappearing, that actually makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Mhm. Speaking of interesting theories, we actually have some insider info on
Ooh.
a lore thread in the upcoming Demon Souls remake.
Oh, cool. Are there spoilers? Because I would love to hear them.
I have no idea what this is.
Yeah,
So
I have no idea what this is.
I'm just sitting there thinking, is this going to be about your cat? Is your cat the new cat ring icon soon?
No, a user named ZBMC Carter left a message in our video on the Demon Souls trailer analysis with insider information. And
Yeah.
Richie, I sent it to you. Could you please read it out for us?
An unnamed source told me that the overgrown grass and plants are part of the new lore. In the new story, King Alan allows his demon neighbor to borrow his lawnmower, and the demon never returns it. Finding the king's lawnmower is the first third of the story.
Then,
I love it.
Richie,
Then you have to find a gas canister to fill it up, and the last third of the story is just your character mowing the king's grass for hours.
then,
The fights in the trailer are literally the only fights in the game. The new developers decided to make Demon Souls into the most realistic lawn care simulator ever created.
thank you. There's more, but Richie is clearly refusing to read it.
That's amazing. That's legendary. I love it.
Thank you, ZBM Carter.
This is something I could share that if anyone in the community knows how to help. I haven't really put this out there yet, but for Demon Souls, for the videos I make, I have access to the debug of Demon Souls, but it's very, very limited compared to like the Dark Souls 1 debug. You can't like teleport. You can't like no clip. I mean, you can't really no clip in the Dark Souls 1 debug. So it's oddly restricted. You can't spawn stuff into your inventory. Even like if I want to go like collect certain things or show certain things in the game, like I have to physically go there in the game and like get it. So like making the Demon Souls videos is like it's a ton more effort, a ton more work, and doing like this whole like world hopping, showing different world tendency events. I'm just like, oh no, like this is gonna be a nightmare. Right, yeah. I mean, you can directly change your world tendency, thankfully, but still. So my whole thing is, I recently learned that apparently with Cheat Engine you can hack stuff in the emulator. You know, I'm not the most tech savvy person, so I guess that's probably not really a surprise to some people. But my biggest wish list for Demon Souls at the moment is if somebody out there could make like a Cheat Engine script that works with Demon Souls and emulation that gives you all of the traditional stuff that Dark Souls 1 have. That's like my wish from the community. That would be absolutely legendary if someone could put something like that out there.
No.
Help me. That's where you can throw that in like
If you need help in something, do you know who you usually summon?
Who's that?
No.
I sense Richie's like staring me down.
See, I thought you were either going to say that or you're going to mention like someone by name, and then we're going to have to edit it out later.
What? I don't.
Yeah, the person you're thinking of summoning doesn't know how to use a debug console because he only has tentacles. So he can't actually use a PS3 controller properly.
Oh, I see. All right. Thank you, Richie.
Polite laughter from Illusory Wall as he attempts to pass this conversation.
No, this is great. I'm all in. I got this is completely out of left field, but just like exhausting things I remember I wanted to talk about with Demon Souls.
Yeah, sure.
Voice actors.
Yes.
Yeah, so that I'm interested to see what's going to happen. My first assumption is it's going to be a mix of new and old cast. I mean,
Yeah.
that would make the most sense. Something I think you guys had talked about was in the opening trailer, opening part of the trailer or whatever. It sounds like the same voice actor for the Maiden in Black.
Mm.
I hope it is. It sounds like it, but it sounds different.
She's saying vowel sounds differently. Like she's got different, like she's elongating certain vowels that if you listen to them side by side, like she uses kind of short vowel sounds in the original and now she's using long ones, which made me think it was a different person. Mm-hmm. So I think she's just directed differently.
It could be directed differently, or maybe even, I don't know, how long, like if English is a second language for her, or like at what point in her life she would have started speaking it perhaps. But it could be that her relationship to the language has changed as well, potentially. Maybe she's been speaking English for even longer now, so that might affect the accent.
Yeah. I mean, like going back to just like stuff in the original that's sort of almost a happy accident, like the draw distance. Ivetta's delivery, like the way that she seems unsure of saying certain words in English, like it adds a lot to the Maiden's character.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Because you can hear her sort of like pause and like sort of force some words out in a way that like sounds sort of unnerving.
Yeah. There's almost like it's funny to bring her up twice in the same episode, but almost to like a Bjork-ish quality to the way she speaks as well, where it's very plain and calm and inviting sounding, but sounds a little like they're choosing their words in a way that's like kind of just trying to communicate with you basically, but it feels there's a bit of an otherness to that person where that they're from somewhere else and they have a different past basically.
Yeah.
If it's not Iveta who's voicing the Maiden this time, that means canonically the Maiden in Black is a Slav.
Right.
Oh, one last thing before we go. Let me ask you a very important and controversial question.
Sure.
Uh-oh.
What do you think of the new font?
Oh, it looks not great. It's not very good, but then like at the same time, like I was looking at the original font and I'm like, how much of our affinity to that is just because we're used to it?
Yeah.
Because the original font isn't very good either. So it feels like a sideways step rather than like a step forward or backwards, but because so many people are used to how it looked originally, a sideways step looks like a massive step backwards, which I'm not sure that, I don't know. It would be, there's such a backlash to it that I'm kind of expecting them to probably change it. Because I feel like the consensus is mostly unanimous and people are just like kind of dunking on it. But I don't know. Yeah, it's one of those things where I didn't even really think about it that much. Like it popped up on the screen and like that subconscious part of my brain was like, that looks a little odd, but I didn't really think about it that much. And then I see the reaction on the line. I'm like, oh yeah, everyone is hating this. Like,
yeah, I didn't think it would be a problem until Richie asked how mad are people about this font.
That was Demon Souls Remake trailer discussion with special guest Illusory Wall.
Hey.
Illusory Wall, do you just want to mention your social media again so people can find you?
Sure thing, yes. That's youtube.com/IllusoryWall, twitter.com/IllusoryWall, Patreon with the same URL as well. And that's sort of the best way to reach me is if you have any questions or just like curious about anything, just at me on Twitter. That's usually the best way to I'm more active there than I do like read most of my YouTube video comments as well. But yeah, Twitter is like kind of the best place to get in contact.
And you're very knowledgeable about like testing game mechanics, and you also do a game music podcast.
Yeah, those are my two sort of things that I really like to nerd out on. In addition to Souls games mechanics and weird cut content and stuff like that, I do a lot of analysis of like why the Nintendo sounds the way it does, or why the Sega Genesis sounds the way it does. So a lot of analysis of old video game music. So if you like Souls games and retro game music, definitely I would love to be in your sphere online.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. This is great.
And before you go, one last question. Who's your favorite Reborn character?
Reborn? Okay, so my favorite Reborn character is Cavallone Famiglia. Wait, that's a family. That's not a character. Crap. Okay.